Okay, folks, our next session is going to take an in-depth look at application modernization. But first, let's once again thank our sponsors for today's event. Special thanks to Amazon Web Services, Red Hat, Trend Micro, Checkmarks, and our host, TSPi. And now, onto the application modernization panel and our moderator. Over the course of his 2-decade career, this gentleman has built a reputation as a solutions-oriented leader focused on building strong client relationships and delivering impactful results. He's currently a vice president with TSPi, and in that role, he provides executive oversight and direction for the company's public sector, agriculture, financial, and healthcare business solutions. Please welcome Brad Wintermute. Brad, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Hi, everyone. I'm Brad Wintermute. In this session, we're going to be talking about application modernization and IT transformation. Joining me today are Brian Merrick with the Department of State and Roy Varghese with the NOAA's National Marine Fisheries Service. So before we get to discussing app modernization, I'd like each of them to introduce themselves and provide a little bit of the background on experiences and their current role in each of their respective agencies. Brian, would you like to start first?
Sure. So I've had a series of roles, from the business side and the IT side. I'm working with cloud for several years, especially with some of our digital outreach activities at the department. And so now I'm the director for our cloud program office. And really what we're doing is trying to modernize the department's approach and federate it across the different pieces of the agency, while still making sure that we're allowing for the highly tailorable requirements that need to be met across the globe for different business functions. So we're providing consistent shared cloud services and platforms, and also enterprise application products to support major initiatives within the department.
Great. Thanks. Roy, how about telling us a little bit about you and the National Marine Fisheries Service?
Good morning, Brad, and nice to see you all, even if it's virtually. And it looks like Brian has the right idea, sitting outside and enjoying this. And hopefully some of the rest of you are also. I have a good view of the outside. Like Brad said, I'm Roy Varghese. I'm with the National Marine Fisheries Service. For those of you who don't know us, we are part of the Department of Commerce in the Bureau of NOAA. And our job is stewardship of the environment in terms of the ocean resources and the habitat. So natural resources, when you think fish, you think of us. We're the ones who ensure that the seafood you eat are sustainable, the wonderful species that you enjoy, like whether it be the dolphins or the turtles or the whales that you go whale watching and seeing are around for generations to come. So we're in the conservation and stewardship side. And I've been with the agency about 10 years. And looking at the calendar here, in another week, I will celebrate my 10-year anniversary as a Fed at NOAA Fisheries. And my 10-year career at NOAA started with an expectation that it'll be a 6-month job. And at that time, it was also modernization. We were going to go from a very small single application cluster into a little bit modern architecture 10 years ago, and unified data center architecture for an Oracle-based application for fishers to get permits. That was 10 years ago. And I thought it was a 6-month gig to stand up the data center, and then I'm out. 10 years later, I'm responsible for the IT operations and the CIO function for the agency. About 4,000 people, 50 locations, now 4,000 locations, right? In our portfolio, there are hundreds of applications scattered all over the country. Application development's very distributed. And we are in the cloud journey also migrated number of applications that are high visibility, high availability requirements, and then some of the mission critical, sensitive and privacy concerned applications are still on-prem, and we're in the process of migrating those over too. So I can't wait to hear from you, Brian, in terms of how what you guys are doing at the state and State Department, and learning from you also.
Yes, absolutely. So both of you guys have great experience with federal space. So let's discuss application modernization a little bit. I'd like both of you to kind of take a moment to describe for the audience what application modernization IT transformation efforts are currently underway at the agency, and then maybe some of the roadblocks, et cetera, that you faced. And so I think we'll start with Brian. Just talk about what you're currently doing, and give the audience some kind of insight there on maybe things that they could avoid.
Sure. Yeah. So just a little context. We have about 275 posts overseas, and we're in most countries. And in addition, we have 50 nations scattered across the U.S., a highly federated organization, about 110,000 core business users in our community, in addition to a multitude of other folks that we share data with, including the general public. So as you can imagine, it's a fairly complex environment. We've definitely taken more of a federation approach. Complete centralization really just doesn't work. So on the app side, what we're really shooting for is to consolidate the platforms that our business customers are using versus trying to consolidate the application layer. Because frankly, we have so many different constituencies that need to interact with those applications that we'd be in a constant change management cycle, right? And so instead, what we're looking at is saying, look, why don't we consolidate onto a minimal number of diverse platforms? I mean, we do manage a multi-cloud environment, many different public cloud vendors, but then make sure that we're helping our business customers use the right tool for the right job. So, we're providing a span of IaaS and SaaS capability. And then, in terms of what's been happening lately, we really focused on a couple of main things, improving the way we manage IT. So we moved all of our ticket system, our configuration management database into the cloud. That's gone live. It's really proving helpful. So we can start really knitting things together. And this year, we're going to do a lot more connecting the business dots, if you will. And then on the application level, we leveraged SaaS very heavily, especially during COVID, so that we could provide enterprise application capabilities for things that a lot of the business owners didn't necessarily own directly. And so that helped us in terms of business support. So our team rolled out 10 applications in 2-3 weeks across the world, to do things like track repatriation flights of Americans coming back because of COVID, the status of medical personnel at our posts, figuring out decision support for senior management on, whether they should close something or open something. Definitely some very impactful things, and also tracking what's going on around the rest of the world, of course, as you can imagine. And with that, it really brought a resurgence, a better understanding of data as an asset, how to leverage that data, and better use it for analytics purposes. So we're really seeing a big growth now in terms of, one, the need to actually modernize applications, not just lift and shift, but redesign them. And then two, looking at data as an asset that can be leveraged by senior management, and what are the things we need to do to better leverage that. In terms of challenges, while change management, always a challenge, this is paradigmatic change. We got a lot of opportunity from just the exigency of the COVID experience, but still difficult to do change management remotely and virtually with everyone involved. Especially we still have a lot of folks across the agency thinking waterfall. And, when they're getting their training, they expect everything fully complete, and it's an iterative process, as you know. So working through that. And then I'd say one of the other big challenges, certainly policy. We need a lot of hybrid solutions now. And so enabling that, where we're accessing on-prem data leveraged by SaaS-facing tools, definitely challenging from a policy standpoint for networking and security folks. So we're working through those issues and definitely meeting with a lot of success. I think where we're going to see a lot of movement now is reimagining the business purposes that they can use IT for across the business owner community. And then certainly looking at new ways to move data in new directions. We're starting to dip our toe into AI and machine learning and bots for some of our simpler processes. I think that's going to really take off. We've also started a lot of analytics capabilities. I think that's going to grow exponentially. So nobody anymore is asking, should I use the cloud? It's how fast can I get this piece to do what I need to do? So I think it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah, that's good. What about mobile? Have you seen an increased need for mobile because of COVID, maybe, or more remote access? I mean, everyone, I assume, is connected and using a laptop, but what about a need for mobile applications?
Absolutely critical to have mobility enabled, that's for sure. We're seeing, I mean, we moved 85% of our workforce to complete 100% telework in 2 weeks. And, we're an organization culturally that, diplomacy is a face-to-face event. And so it was a big culture change, definitely brought out a need for mobility. We used a lot of proxy servers to be able to access some of our legacy applications through browsers. Not optimal, but it's getting it done for now. So a lot of the app owners are looking to actually make sure that the platforms they're leveraging on the mobile side can render with responsive design, so that our mobile users can do that. And a lot of things we've built at the enterprise level. We had folks checking repatriation flights through a mobile app on their personal iPhone through browser-based access from an airport. So we're definitely seeing that adoption is driving quickly. And it's definitely panning out in our agency.
Makes sense. All right, let's shift to Roy then. Roy, you want to talk us about your current IT transformation and app modernization efforts? Any pitfalls that we should avoid, or maybe successes that you've seen that to do it this way and you'll be successful, kind of thing?
Maybe I'll start by talking in the context of what modernization and transformation means, right? We hear those terms thrown out a lot, and at the end of the day, I am sitting in my chair doing my job at no fisheries to enable and empower the mission. So I need to have the conversation with my mission partners to figure out what do they need. How do I enable them? How do I empower them to get their job done faster? And Brian is 100% right. The one of the silver linings of COVID is that we as IT practitioners and evangelists don't need to make the case that, hey, moving to the cloud is the right thing to do. We don't need to make that case at all, right? If anything, we have a capacity problem, capacity to execute based on the demands that are coming from the field. But it's important to have the conversation about what modernization means, what digital transformation means, what does digitization mean, what does going digital mean to the business. And it's very different depending on who you speak to. And our organization, as I mentioned, not as dispersed as Brian. It's not 275 countries, but it might as well be 4,000 different countries, because when you're talking about scientists, they're individuals with their unique perspective on how to collect data, how to process data, how to do the science and develop solutions that meet the need. And Brad, you know that full well, coming from with your FDA background. So having the conversation with them, we have over 800 or so applications that are in the science and mission support side, that essentially are collecting data, processing it, developing information and actionable insights, and then presenting it to whoever the decision maker is, or to the public at large, right? From a technology perspective, we know how to modernize it very easily. We can come to a solution very quickly, right? That's unfortunately the biggest risk, in my view, that we as technologists see the final solution before our mission sees it or is ready to embrace it. So having the dialogue is very important. So in some cases, let me speak a little bit more practically. Some cases, we may need to take incremental steps in terms of getting them to leverage AI and machine learning. I'll give you an example. In our world, we have to do assessment on the health of fishery stock, so we can tell the public and the industry how much tuna they should catch, right? Bluefin tuna, or how much pollock they should be catching, so that the fish fillet sandwich you eat, prices don't go up, and you can still have the sandwich or the sushi at a price that is reasonable. And that requires a lot of data points. And we can envision a world using technologies from partners to streamline that much quickly than it is presently done. But the way we do science and management is a collaborative approach. We need to build consensus, especially when you're talking about AI. You need to build trust in the AI to the stakeholders for them to embrace, right? Otherwise, they will be questioning the algorithm, questioning the science, and we have to be very careful. So from an app modernization perspective, we've taken the approach of it's very much an a la carte solution. So in some cases, we're refactoring the application on a low-code, no-code platform. For example, our consultation process, when we consult with other agencies, including in some cases the State Department and EPA and Food and Drug Administration and Coast Guard and others in terms of environmental impact, that consultation information needs to be shared with the public at large as well as internally. We can build that kind of a business system, business process management system with low-code platform, and we've been able to do that, successfully deploy it iteratively and be able to see value and people embrace it as opposed to the traditional waterfall approach. So that's been very successful. We are also in the business of sharing our work products with the public at large, and for that, we may need to take a different technology solution approach. So refactoring versus just in some cases lift and shift the existing code into a new structure is also that's an option. So we're looking at everything from going cloud native to migrating to an application into a cloud platform by just pure lift and shift from a VM environment on-prem to a cloud environment to increase availability and get economies of scale in terms of cost. And Brian, you're right. We're also rapidly adopting SaaS products, and that's been one of the big successes. And I would say roadblocks and lessons learned. One aspect is, our people need to be trained on how to leverage these technologies effectively. Without that, you will not really get the return on investment that you need. So we have embraced this mantra of we need to retain, reskill, and recruit the next generation of workforce. That means we need to invest heavily in training, understanding the competencies and providing training opportunities, and also attract people who care about working in this innovative and new platforms into our organization, because our mission is pretty cool, pretty fantastic, and people when they hear about what we do want to work with us. And the other aspect is we still, to some extent, we're government. Our processes are harder to change. Everything from our change management process to how we get to ATO, right? We need to rethink how our processes need to adapt to the modern era and take some approaches. So we've worked hard on those two aspects so that we can get some successes early, get some early wins, and get buy into the process and go from there.
Yeah, organizational change is always, getting people to buy into that is always a challenge. And then certainly the skills are trying to keep up with the rapid change in technology is always, when I was at the FDA, that was a big challenge because people knew technology that we were using, but that was technology generally that was 10 years ago in vogue technology, and so it was always a challenge. So Brian, do you have similar challenges with training and, workforce over at the State Department?
Oh, of course. I mean, I think everybody is facing that, not just in industry, or I'm sorry, not just in government, but industry as well. And I totally echo all those comments. I mean, it's a real challenge, and we've been working on it. And some of the things we're doing is we're trying to make sure that we change the perception of the possibilities of modern technology, and then how the organization manages it and shares information. So, for instance, I'm co-chairing a new working group across the agency. We're going to have our first app development summit around the world in 2 weeks. And what we're really trying to do is bring together the application development community across the agency, at a grassroots level, at the teams level, and bring in, vendors from industry about best practice, have the team share their best practices, and then give them a feedback loop to come back to the enterprise and say, hey, these are the core enablers I need so I can do better development, whether it be SaaS or custom development. We want to make sure that people are sharing that information, because historically, everyone stayed in their sort of organizational silo, and so it was really hard to capitalize on abilities to train folks on possibilities and capabilities, and also for folks to share information across different organizational boundaries. So we're thinking that's definitely going to help move in the right direction. We're also trying to focus in our change efforts on really integrating actual users, that at scale into our testing process and our agile processes, and making sure that we are adjusting our training material to those user bases. Whether it be short videos, actually using people from the business units to conduct the training, like a train the trainer approach for better buy-in. And certainly one of the key things, can't stress enough, is the engagement with the business side. I think if on the IT side, we're focused on things that are real mission priorities to the business, it's going to be a lot easier to get that senior management support to drive adoption and to enable training events to really be more well attended. So things like that, I think, are going to be helpful in moving forward, but it's a real challenge. And then briefly on the retention piece, just like Roy was saying, I mean, if you have cool work, you're going to get more energetic workers with better expertise doing the work. And so what we're trying to do is make sure we get the word out there, whether it be our contract labor partners or as we're trying to hire staff, to make sure they understand the kinds of things we're working on and the opportunities they'll have to increase their skill sets and to do meaningful work that's related to our mission, which is pretty exciting. And we're at the spearhead of diplomacy for the country. And we're all over the world interacting with all kinds of different organizations and cultures. So it can be really exciting stuff, doing impactful things. And I think that's something that agencies sometimes kind of lose sight of, but it's a huge marketing point, especially for younger folks that want to make a difference. So it's something we shouldn't, we shouldn't underestimate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sometimes the folks that are younger coming out of college and looking for a career, they're thinking, well, government's going to be stodgy, and I want to be able to work in the latest technology. And so being able to offer the latest technology and cool work environments should be a plus for sure. So that's good. Let's move our focus a little bit. We've talked a little kind of already about future, but kind of look towards the future, and what are the top priorities for the next 2 to 5 years or so in each of your agencies, on where do you think you're really going, and where are you going to get the most bang for your buck if you are looking at your crystal ball today, and what do you think there? I guess we'll start with Roy on this one. Any thoughts?
Thanks, Brad. Fortunately, I don't need to look at a crystal ball because we've been working the last few years in terms of laying out a plan for what the next few years is going to look like. From a NOAA perspective, we have laid out a research priorities that to leverage some of the technologies like AI, ML, uncrewed platform, like if you're thinking about drones. So for us, it's marine as well as air platforms to collect data, focusing on data as a strategic asset and leveraging the organization, ensuring that we are taking advantage of the cloud. I'm on the fishery side. We really care about omics, the whole idea that biosciences can play a role in understanding our environment so that we can manage it better. And last but not least is this idea that as an agency, I think we can do a better job with the taxpayers' dollars as well as for humanity if we open the door and embrace citizen science. The best ideas don't come from just the 4,000 people that are part of NOAA Fisheries or the 19,000 people part of NOAA. We as an organization is better if we invite others to be part of solving the bigger problems, bigger challenges. So I spoke in terms of NOAA fisheries specifically. The challenge is, how do we manage our resources and understand our ecosystems so that we can manage the resources better, whether it be protecting them or, from a recreational commercial fishery, harvesting them, right? So we've laid out a plan. Now we're in the middle of, and I'm leading the NOAA effort on cloud adoption, and the cloud strategy, and the implementation plan for cloud is going to be published hopefully in the next couple of months. And Nancy Majauer is leading that effort from our office to lay out that plan. Specifically for NOAA fisheries, we see a world where we will standardize on a single platform for our cloud migration, for applications that need to be built to leverage AI ML. And in our case, we've awarded a multi-year contract with Google to do that work. So cloud native work for mission applications probably will end up in that platform, unless it makes sense to go to a low-code platform or a software as a service. So, or build custom. So what does that mean? So we need a robust application rationalization process. We need some structure around why we need to do what we need to do. So the conversation about digital transformation and app modernization, we've had many conversations where our business partners come to us and say, hey, I want to move this particular application to XYZ technology, right? Because they may have done research in some cases. Some cases they may have heard about one solution from one of these sessions, and they're like, I want that. We have invested heavily in building a relationship with and partnership with that business unit to say, okay, we hear you, let's understand, and let's make sure that that is the right decision, and let's do the appropriate level of market research and engagement with all stakeholders so that the right solution gets built. So sometimes that path is slow. Sometimes the path is much faster. That's the other part too, right? Because they might be thinking custom developed when some solutions might be out of the box available on a platform that we already have, or leverage an existing solution that's in play at another agency when you're talking about SaaS or PaaS solutions, right? Or a lot of the cloud vendors have 70, 80, 100, hundreds of products ready to be leveraged. So we, as an IT community, owe it to our mission to educate them, to be able to do that kind of conversations. And we've done that with electronic monitoring in terms of image analytics to ensure that we have a better handle of what kind of fisheries stock is being harvested. We're doing that in terms of permitting and engagement with our stakeholders, whether it be a rec fish or commercial fishery, getting permits to go catch fish. So it's that kind of dialogue, I believe, is very it's essential for the partnership that needs to exist between the mission and technology. And I think becoming a partner is the best thing we can do as IT community. And we will be, whether you sit on the vendor side or on the Fed side, I think when we go in it together, we can deliver the best solution and really have a long-term partnership. And I think that's what everybody is in it for. Long-term partnership that solves the mission problem that has tangible results in a very short period of time.
Yeah, it's always a challenge, when you've got business, I used to have business partners, if within the agency that would play armchair quarterback, right? So they slept in a Holiday Inn last night. Today they're an IT expert and they have the solution and they bring it in. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know if that's going to be the right thing. Let's sit down and talk. And I think that is the right way to get things to go forward. Brian, how about you? What are your what are you looking at from a priorities kind of in this future view of where are you going with the Department of State?
Yeah, I think we're going to leverage a lot more low code and no code for the majority of our app requirements. We're really, trying to factor in our culture organizationally, right? And so, as I said, with the federation of the business, we want to put easy, efficient tools in the hands of, our business customers to be able to do small applications they need for, say, a tasker system or a simple workflow without having to spend a major investment or do the change management to get everyone in exactly the same approach. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We're also going to do with a lot more citizen development, if you will, at our local business levels. And then I think a lot of the larger organizations we support will definitely be moving into the cloud even faster. And we're going to see a lot more adoption of centrally provided infrastructure and platforms. And that infrastructure is changing. I mean, we've been very network centric for a long time, just by virtue of our necessity. And now with the advent of the cloud and the commoditization of some of these tools, it's really lending itself to centralizing the back end to reduce cost and complexity and improve security. But then, like I said, we're definitely going to see a lot more dispersion of more applications, which I think is great. And also applications that are more useful for our user base. One of the things we're definitely seeing along the lines of mobility and obviously the COVID experience, the population of our workforce is changing and it's expecting to have the same experience at work that you can on your iPhone at home. And that's really driving the business community, if you will, to say, hey, look, what was good enough before, it's just not going to cut it. We need responsive tools. We need things that are simple, fast, easy, that I don't have a lot of complexity around in terms of how to use them. So we want to see less training on the user side because the facing is just intuitive, and it should be. We also want to reduce data, duplicate data entry through more data sharing. I think we're going to see more of that, better data standardization, and definitely a lot more dashboarding and decision support for our leadership so they can take that data and turn it into informations that culminate in decisions. And so I think a lot of that is going to continue to evolve. On the technical side, I think we're going to see movement. We've already started looking at things into peering solutions so we can reduce our boundary risks. Changing, like I said, the way we get to these applications and resources securely. We're going to see a lot more mobile platforms. I wouldn't necessarily say mobile apps because most modern apps, if you build them correctly, can render mobile. But definitely having that in mind through the design process and really seeing a lot more deliberate execution of that. We're also probably going to see a lot more containerization, a lot more microservices, and definitely a strong move into the SaaS piece. I mean, the buy once, build many is really powerful from a SaaS standpoint. The argument around I asked initially was, oh, it'll save money, but especially from a government standpoint, we get big tranches of money maybe a couple times a year. So metered consumption costing, really difficult to get that planning spot on. So just the way the government operates, it's hard to take advantage of that at scale without creating a lot of risk. So I think, not that we won't have it, obviously we have quite a bit of it, but I think we'll continue to see the move into SaaS. And like I said, I think we'll have a lot more trust and better processes around the use of bots and machine learning. But I think at the same time, that's going to lend us or end us up in some really interesting policy areas. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff we're doing now to kind of start is really in the back office management side, if you will. So there's no real impact from a larger policy standpoint. But there are certainly a lot of applications for blockchain, public and private, for machine learning, use of drones and other things in our environment, Internet of Things, that are going to land us into some really interesting policy areas that we're going to have to resolve. And so I think we're going to have to create a better framework to address those as they come up, getting the right SMEs involved with the right business owners to be able to balance the risk to the agency and to the country on some of these issues that are going to arise from the use of technology. But it's going to be an exciting time, definitely for the next 5 years. Guarantee that.
Absolutely, and I guess a lot of the policy goes around, citizens engagement and citizen experience. So, is there anything you can comment on in the last few minutes we've got around, IT transformation and how that affects the citizen engagement, citizen experience?
Yeah. So as you can imagine, I mean, we do visas and passports in our agency, and lots of citizen engagement for a multitude of reasons around the world, both U.S. and foreign citizenry. And so, yeah, a huge push in the programmatic side to leverage technology to improve the and so really what we're looking to do across the board, the big we, if you will, is simplifying that user experience for inputting data and making sure that the data that comes in is forced to be complete and is connected to master reference data sources as well for those things that need to be consistent, and that we're sharing data between those different business purposes as appropriate. So for the person in the public, they don't have to re-enter their same information multiple times, and then we have point in time and cutoff issues and whatnot between different systems. And so I think that's going to improve the user experience and also things like bringing in Wi-Fi into some of our overseas locations for the public that's interacting with us so they can pull up the information they need right there. We've already kind of started that. Some places obviously different than others from the security standpoint, but I think we're going to see a lot more of that. So our engagement with the public is definitely a major focus of improvement and streamlining and good human-centered design and usability. So we'll see a lot more of that as it goes on.
Yeah, I would imagine, if I showed up at, an embassy somewhere, I would expect to get on Wi-Fi. I could do that at Starbucks, right? So that's interesting for sure. Roy, how about you? Comment on, how is the IT transformation kind of affecting and hopefully improving citizen experience for NOAA?
I think that's an essential part of what we do. We are here to serve the public, and we collect a lot of information and share it and make decisions. And it is our responsibility to be able to disseminate that information in a way that is easily digestible. So our approach has been all about measuring, setting target. So if you're talking about public website and citizen engagement, figure out a way to independently measure it, whether it be an ACSI kind of a scoring metrics or some other ways. Have a target, right? And then you can hit it, whether it be if you pick Net Promoter Score or something like that in terms of citizen experience or even internal employee engagement experience. It's important that you have some sort of metrics to track how well we're doing. Otherwise, we'll be building systems that we love, but our users will have different ideas.
That's always a challenge, right? Just because you like it doesn't mean that the others will like it. Just in the last, we've got about 3 minutes left, but when we were going through here, what about open source? I think it was Brian it was Roy talking about getting scientific support from kind of crowdsourcing. What about using open source technology in application development efforts? Are you moving more towards that, less towards that?
Absolutely. We are, I caught a tail end of the Git presentation when I came in, and we are a believer in the DevSecOps tool chain and incorporating tools that are both commercial and open source to build a tool chain that's robust enough that can operate on a cloud platform and shared by the community, as Brian talking about. And I think we have a policy in terms of how code can come into our environment and how we can share that code, because we believe that the code developed at NOAA should be shared, and of course within parameters, right? Within certain parameters. So we have policies in place to promote some of that, and it's our job as technology practitioners to make that easier. And we still have the same roadblocks as we mentioned earlier to make that a reality.
Gotcha. Brian, any comments on open source in our last minute?
Yeah, I'd say for us, it really depends on the business purpose. I mean, we have, different security parameters, right? So our folks that do public outreach, certainly they use a lot of open source code, but then we also have a lot of activities that impact national security, and because of that, we really, our risk tolerance doesn't really take us there. So I think we're, like everything else, I mean, we're going to have a multifaceted approach based on the business need and the risk tolerance of the mission activity. So I guess the answer is yes. It's both. It depends.
It all depends, right? That sounds great. Listen, both of you, thank you very much. This has been a great session. This concludes our app modernization session. I really appreciate you taking the time today. I think the audience got a lot of good insights, and thank you, and have a great day. Enjoy the outside, Brian. It looks like a beautiful day.
I will. Great.
See you both.
Thanks. Bye.
Well, guys, thanks so much to our app modernization panel. Brad, that was terrific. Very insightful, and I think the audience really appreciated that.